Hey guys, it's Duke for the Intimacy Liberation Army podcast. Today we're talking about 10 self-reflection exercises for understanding your emotions. In the last 5, 6, 7 days, I've talked a lot about self-awareness and emotional intelligence and how it's going to help you make your relationships way better. And now we're down to the practical, starting from number 1, self-reflection exercises for understanding your own emotions. Let's go. First off, I've talked about this the last couple videos, daily emotions journaling. Here's how you do it. Step 1, you do 5-10 minutes just writing down your emotions at the end of the day. What was I feeling today? What came up for me? What triggered me? What was the overarching theme? And if you're doing the daily if you're doing the daily habits thing that I did 2 days ago in I think 2 videos ago. Here's the link. If you're doing the habits thing, then in the morning you're saying, okay, it's my intentions for the day. So when you do the emotion journaling at the end of the day, you'd be like, did I end up meeting my intentions, right? You include the emotions that you felt, because you only feel 5-10 emotions really throughout the day, in the day-to-day. Not very often does everything flip up and have a bunch of different variety for you unless you're living a crazy ass life. Write down the emotions you had and then include what triggered those emotions and then include how you responded. Just writing them down, not even having to solve things or find solutions in that daily emotional journaling, is going to bring forth patterns over time. So you'll write blah, blah, blah. Hey, it's January 7th, blah, blah, do this. And then, when you come out to March or whatever, you look back, you can see multiple times where you come into the same types of situations and you respond in the same types of ways. And you can think to yourself, okay, well, what would be better ways to, in the gap, make a different decision and see if I can get some different results. So that's number 1, daily emotion journaling. Number 2, the trail of whys or the 5 whys technique. You do this a lot in like change work when we're dealing with clients in front of us. I'm in a course for sophrology, and I'm certified hypnotist. And so when we come to the live events, people come and we'll relax them and have them visualize walking down the stairs and all that stuff, and then get them into a place where they're sort of suggestible. And then we ask them why they have this problem that they have, and they'll give an answer, and they'll be like, well, why that? And then they'll give an answer, and then, well, why that? And their critical faculties kind of set on the shelf, so they're just free-flowing more in the moment. And that's kind of the point of the hypnosis things that we do. And you ask a bunch of whys, and eventually you get down to the root of the problem. And so you can choose a specific emotion that you felt during the day. Anger, sadness, joy, bliss, obsession, in love, right? It's like, oh man, that chick came by and I fucking just fell in love with her right away and I cannot stop thinking about her, right? You choose that kind of emotion and then you say, why am I feeling like this? And very often, especially the guys that I coach, they'll be like, oh, I totally love this chick. We had this great interaction. She made me feel I was light on my feet all day. And I'm like, okay, why? And like, no, she just had this way about her. So, okay. What specifically about the way about her made you feel more intense emotion than other girls, right? And then we just drive down, and it usually leads to their need for approval. I did this one. I met a girl in September, and she just took over my brain for like fucking 15 minutes, and I was like, what is happening? Like, I have a primary partner. We've been together 15 years. I've been all over the world running game and having little tete-a-tetes and relationships with women for the last 15 years. Like I have abundance in that way. And so why would I be obsessed over this one random interaction? And so I was like, why? And it came out to be, when I figured it out, it's like, oh man, like, cause I just lost my mother like 3 weeks ago. Right. And the energy that she was bringing was very much reminding me of the maternal side of her. The good parts of my relationship with my mom. They she kind of like reminded me sideways, right? Like I didn't notice it right away. I didn't make that conclusion. But after going down this trail of whys thing, I was like, oh, that's why I was obsessed with it, because I feel like I've been missing that from my from my from my loss, and then she brought that energy, and then that's why I was sort of fixating on it. And then I didn't have to future project all this other shit, because I realized, oh yeah, she brought that to the table. That was a nice gift. Thank you very much. I did that in my gratitude practice, and then I was like, I can move on. I don't have to be like, what's so about this girl, and then have to obsess over her for 5 days, and then try to like chase her and all this bullshit, right? Because I drilled down like, why'd that happen? Why'd that happen? Why'd that happen? Why'd that happen? Oh fuck, that's why, right? So the way you do the number 2, the 5 whys technique, is to choose a specific emotion: anger, sadness, joy, fucking obsession, love, whatever. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Every time you come up with an answer, say, why that then? And then another thing that's useful in there is what specifically? Because a lot of times we'll generalize when we answer. I don't know, she just had this thing about her. Well, okay, what specifically did she have about her that made her different than other girls, right? And then boom, 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 you drive down. And the further down you go, you don't have to journal this. You can just sort of like consciously ask yourself, like in the middle of like not a meditation practice, but like just a thought experiment. And go at least 5 times deep. Deeper you can, the better, because eventually you'll get to a point where you can't go anywhere, and then there's a release. There's like a, oh fuck, like that's it, because you sort of dip into your unconscious, and it comes back. You sort of trick it into answering your questions, right? And so this technique absolutely reveals the root cause of why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, and that brings you back to the self-awareness we've been talking about all week. So that's number 2. Number 3 self-reflection exercises for understanding your emotions is the morning emotional check-in. This is a little bit different than the setting intentions thing from a couple of days ago, but before you start your day, just pause, ask yourself, how do I feel right now? What might be causing this feeling? And then use that insight to set the tone for the rest of your day. It's a quick, minute and a half thing. You're like, all right, how do I feel right now? So I'll get up in the morning, and I go through Andrew Bustamante's morning routine ritual, where I drink a whole shit ton of water, and then I cook an egg, trying to be present without like doing anything else, like not thinking, just cook the egg, be present, cooking the egg, eat the egg, drink the water, now think, right? And then I also do make before you manage. I'm sorry, yeah, make before you manage. So like I'll go create something before I try to pull out my timelines and figure out all the tasks I have to do for the day. So I create this stuff actually late night, but I do things like in music, or I do things in some of my other. I run a thing called Self Positive, and it was pretty big in the podcast world a while back, and I'm going to relaunch it probably in June. So I'm making a bunch of stuff for that. Anyway, it's real quick. You just say morning emotional check-in. You go, how do I feel right now? So like after I eat my egg, I'm like, how do I feel right now? I'm like, something's looming. Like I'm dreading something today. Okay, why? What might be causing that? Like, okay, well, I know I have this meeting, and I got this other thing, and then I'm meeting up with this person, and I haven't called this person. Oh fuck, I forgot to do that thing, right? And that's why I have that looming, like the stress is kind of like weighing over me. And then once I figure that out, then when I go to prioritize for my day later, I can prioritize in the direction of moving myself out of the looming dread and into more productivity or more bliss or whatever, right? So morning emotional check-in, that's number 3. Number 4, breathing with emotional awareness. We do mindfulness stuff all over this channel. Like I said, I got real influenced by Jack Kornfield and his book, The Wise Heart. It was actually a gift from one of the girls I was going after, 15 years ago or something. And you basically focus on your breath for a couple minutes, just like out. And I went deep on this 4 or 5 days ago. Here, hit the link. And you focus on your breath, And then as the thoughts or feelings come by, you just sort of acknowledge them. It's like, this is the thought, this is the emotion, it's going by. Keep breathing, bring it back to your breath. And then what will happen is you'll be able to see, you don't have to do this in the morning. I usually do this later after I start doing a lot of my tasks and stuff. I take a Pomodoro break and I just calm down. I'm like, okay, focus on breathing, be present. And then all these thoughts will come. And instead of attaching to the thoughts and getting drugged down the river with them, you just sort of watch them go by. And that way you can sort of view your emotions as they come up without judgment. And you just sort of see them as they are, and you know, attach all these meanings to them, right? And that practice will actually like strengthen your ability to look at look at things way more objectively. Number 5, gratitude reflection. I do this every damn day. I used to do it every day in the morning because it would set the tone for like the rest of my day, and I still think that's a great practice. But sometimes I do it at the end of the day now because it makes it more timely, right? So if I go in the morning and I'm like, I usually use these. They're a mala. It's like a Buddhist thing. 108 beads on this thing, right? So I start at the top of the bead, and I'm like, hey, I'm grateful for the fact that I can walk. I quit smoking a couple months ago. I'm grateful for the fact that I have full lungs of air now. I'm grateful for the fact that my fridge is full of Diet Coke, so I don't have to get warm ones from the garage. I'm grateful for the fact that my cat wanted way too much attention this morning, but I felt, the dopamine and the love from him as he was clawing on my chest. I felt great, right? And I do all this thing 108 times. I go through the people in my life. I go through the things, and it only takes like fucking 6 minutes, 8 minutes, or whatever. I'm fully associated in that, and I do it every day, and it really like reframes my brain to focus on the cool things that I'm receiving from the universe or receiving from God or whatever. Like there are so many parts of my life that are fucking awesome. Like the fact that I can sit here in this chair and talk to a video camera for 35 minutes at the end of every night. I have the freedom to do that. I have the money to do that. I have the social support to do that. Like that is like awesome, right? But like I'm super grateful for that kind of stuff, and having the ability to recognize that stuff every day really puts my mind in the right spot. Like, it doesn't mean that I don't have things to complain about, or it doesn't mean I don't have things to be ungrateful about, but focusing on great gratitude really narrows my focus into possibility and opportunity. And there's plenty of time to focus on things you hate, right? Today I had an issue where I used to be a crazy IT guy. Like I was like super phenom programmer guy. And before I got into the coaching thing. And I had one of my friends, he wanted me to do his website. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. So I went over and I did the meeting, and I, looked it all up. And it turns out that he hadn't paid one of his bills for one of his website builders or whatever. I couldn't get at the data that I needed to get. And that was a little frustrating. And I went to the meeting not unprepared. Like I was supposed to show a demo of what I'd done at this meeting, but this meeting I couldn't happen because I couldn't do anything. So I had to go explain all that stuff. And that was frustrating. It was like, I want to get this thing done, off my plate, out of my way, help my friend out, be like done, right? Move on. But yeah, I can bitch and whine and moan and be frustrated about stuff and have things to be ungrateful for, and that's great, right? But a lot of those things happen all throughout the day, and I have plenty of those, right? What I found when I first started the gratitude stuff a few years ago is I found that I have plenty of things to bitch about, but I also have plenty of things to be grateful for. And I would default to not noticing all the stuff I was grateful for. And I would just notice all the problems and all the stress and all the things in the to-do list and in the prioritization and how I didn't get things done. I beat myself up for not doing the things that I didn't want to do, and feeling obligated to people that I didn't know that they provided much value in my life. And like there's all those things to focus on. So I did. And I defaulted to focusing on the things I was ungrateful for and not to the things I was grateful for. And then when I started intentionally doing this, it balanced everything out. I'm not saying like always be positive and never acknowledge bad shit. Like, yeah, no, acknowledge the bad shit, but also make it a practice to acknowledge the good shit. Because your life is much more full than any of your narrow perspective in the moment tends to give you, right? There are guys who go out, like one of my clients today, I had a call, and he said, I went out the other night, and I just couldn't get any traction. I couldn't get any rapport with any of the girls, and da 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 da, and it's just like fucking slogging through stuff. And I was like, yeah. But first off, you went out. Secondly, you talked to a bunch of people. 3, you got a lot of valid interactions. Like you actually tried to talk to them. You came off with the wrong vibe, and they didn't want to fuck with that vibe, but you just kept going, and you had some wherewithal to it. And remember 3 months ago when you were going out and you were afraid to approach anybody for fear of exactly what happened tonight. And now you can just do what you want, even if sometimes people aren't responsive. It's like, yeah, and I didn't look at it that way. It's like, yeah, all of those things are possible. Like they're available to you to see, but if you don't intentionally go seek them out, sometimes they don't pop up on purpose, right? And then you start sitting in this negative mindset that's like always seeing the problems, and then you feel helpless, you feel useless, you become less learned optimistic, and your life doesn't have the opportunity in front of your face because you're not looking for it. And sometimes it'll be here just hanging out, and you don't see it for fucking months, and then you're like, oh, that was there the whole time, fuck, right? The gratitude practice fixes that. It gets you the balance so that you can see the opportunities and the positives as well as, see the problems before they come, right? And when you move into the gratitude space, you start to see things as solutions. And I'm not going all spiritual woo on you and be like, yeah, you just rest in gratitude and we're all one and blah, blah, blah. No, it's like practical. It's like if you can see new opportunities and new inroads of things and resources that come out of nowhere, like you start seeing that shit and you're like, oh, my life is actually much more manageable because I can balance out the feeling obligated, the feeling negative, the feeling frustrated with feeling grateful and feeling celebrating things that are happening that have never happened before, right? Like my life is super awesome. Like every month I get to travel somewhere that I haven't been yet and to give a speech, and people pay me for it, and then I fly back and I do some other stuff, and then I get to shoot YouTube videos, and then so I make some money doing side gigs and doing Uber and stuff like that, right? When I'm not standing on stage, and my life is varied, and I think it might be nicer if I just did one thing and focused on it, but it also plays into the ADHD really well, and I'm excited about doing all these fucking crazy different things, and I drop things at will because I have so many pans in the fire, right? And so I'm actually really happy, like not a happy, like, what do you call it? Fulfilled. I'm super fulfilled. My well-being is like super high, and I have a lot to be grateful for, even when I run into weird financial problems, and I'm having stress about paying this thing, or my mom dies and I have to go do all this fucking probate bullshit, and yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that's going on over there. But if I just stop for a second and I fucking 5-6 minutes and I go through and I'm like this, I like this, I like this, I like this, I'm grateful for this. Like my whole life is in perspective, awesome. and so I'm a lot more open to the opportunities and the resources that I have available. Number 5, gratitude reflection. I was going to say, you can do it at the end of the day, and it makes it more timely. It's like, at the end of the day, you get to go over the day and look at the things you were grateful for. And then it sort of future projects in tomorrow, right? So I started doing the morning thing less because I packed my morning with a bunch of other routines and meditations and stuff. And then I started doing the gratitude later. And I usually do it like in the car before I come home from wherever I'm out at, right? And then before I get here. And so I'm usually in a real good mood when I start shooting videos and stuff. So that's great. Number 6. Feelings wheel exercise. So there's a thing online. It's called the feelings wheel. Just Google it. Google image search it. And it basically takes the what do you call it? The emotions, the general emotions like happy, sad, whatever, and it breaks them down into more specific things, outer ring of the wheel. I'll put it here if I remember to edit. And if you can be more specific, this is something I learned from Tony Robbins in the first date with Destiny I did. If you can be more specific about the emotions that you're feeling, and you start to make distinctions between more specific levels of them, then you have a better feeling of agency, right? So if you're like, okay, I'm sad, and you're like, okay, well, am I sad or am I feeling loss? Am I feeling hurt or am I feeling betrayal? Am I feeling if the guy didn't call me back, do I feel like he doesn't think I'm important, or do I feel like I was excited to have that conversation and then I didn't get to have it, so I'm feeling more lost? Like, if you start thinking in those more specific realms, then you can really put a finger on it. And then when you set boundaries and stuff, you can be like, oh yeah, no, it really sucks you didn't call me back because I was actually really looking forward to the conversation, and I had prepped up, and I was like, you know how like you're going to go to Disneyland the next day, and then the night before you can't sleep because you're all excited. Like, I was really excited for the conversation we were going to have. And then we didn't get to have it, and I was like, I just felt like I lost momentum on that, right? And then people can understand why you do things, and that goes back to the first couple of days when I was talking about clarity in communication. The more clear or the more specific you could be about what you're feeling, and to yourself and to other people, the better equipped you are to solve the problems that come up. And if you find a more nuanced emotion, like I was content, or I was bridging on what's the word, like disappointment, right? Rather than like, that hurt, that made me sad, right? The more specific you can be, the better, the more resources, the more useful you can be at solving issues in that area. The feelings wheel exercise number 6. Number 7, role reversal reflection. So this is specifically for like conflict with other people, right? So if you had an experience, what did I write here? Yeah. So if you have an experience where you and somebody didn't see eye to eye, and it made you feel some type of way, put yourself in their shoes on purpose, right? So you'll have a part in your routine or a part in your day. You go in there and you're like, okay, well, what were they feeling in that moment? If I was them, why would I say something like that? Or why would I act that way, right? Very often, especially in the attachment theory type stuff, I've been dealing with that a lot. The last 3 girls I dated, they were all super avoidantly attached. And I was in that, what the attachment people will call the anxious avoidant trap, where I was chasing and they were feeling unsafe and non-autonomous, and so they would run and I'd keep chasing, and right. So I started doing this role reversal thing where I was like, okay, why would she withhold that? Why would she ignore that phone call? Why would she see that text message and not respond? Why, right? And I would put in, and you got to get past that, like, because she doesn't respect me, right? Because that runs you in circles and you don't really get any valid data. And I started learning about how dismissive avoidance work and whatever. And all of this is kind of like the nuance, right? I have quite a bit to say about that, actually, but we'll keep it short for this list. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So I would get in this like, if she had a lot of things in childhood where she had to be the one in control, otherwise she didn't feel safe and whatever, and then she grew up, she's still using those strategies. My poking and prodding was making her feel unsafe. Now, perhaps ideally, I had no fault in that area, right? Like, because she should communicate, otherwise our relationship is going to die, right? Like she still has some accountability in this thing, right? But if I can put myself in her shoes, I can understand where she's coming from, and my solutions are going to be a lot more nuanced, because instead of because it's either like, okay, either keep putting up with this or don't, and leave and find a new relationship, right? It's so polar when you don't go nuanced and understand why, right? If you're just like, okay, I feel hurt and she continues to do this and I keep, compromising instead of collaborating, a common goal and co-creating something new. And so I feel bad about myself and my self-esteem is dropping. Uh, at that level, the choice is just, okay, cut her off, find somebody who matches, or stay in and get beaten down until nothing's left, right? So the more nuanced you can be and say, okay, why are they feeling that way? Why is she acting in this defensive manner? What would lead her to think that that's a good decision? Because everybody acts like most people don't act malevolently. They don't act in a way to hurt your feelings on purpose. Most people act in the way to protect their own feelings at all costs. And that's different. Like, it's not like they're attacking you most of the time. Like, there are some people who are malevolent and psycho and weird, but like, most people are just running their own scripts. And if you can understand where their scripts are coming from, you have an inroad to kind of co-create something new. And if you don't ever ask those questions, you'll never find those things. Perhaps the answer is fucking leave, right? But sometimes if you get a more nuanced answer, you can kind of stay in and learn something about yourself and about them as you're moving through. And it's not a waste of time no matter what happens at the end, right? If you're not focused on the end goal and you're focused more on the journey, which is something we'll talk about way later in the year when we're talking about finding the perfect partner, not settling and all that stuff. If you're focused on what you're experiencing, what you're learning, how you're growing, and all that stuff, the more nuance you can get, the better you can get those lessons. So that was role reversal. Number 8, we have the visualization of the emotional triggers. I talked about this a couple days ago, but this is an actual practice, right? So like I said, you don't have to visualize. Like if you're not primarily visual, like you can't make pictures in your head. My primary representational state is audio digital. It means I hear my own voice narrating shit. That's my primary one. My secondary one is kinesthetic. I feel things in my body. And then my third one is visual, right? So I can still visualize, but it's not my primary thing. So you don't have to visualize, but close your eyes, limit your distraction, and then visualize a recent emotional situation, whether it's a person-to-person interaction, or if it's just something that washed over you. I've been doing this a lot with grief because of the mom dying and all that. I've been like, okay, this came in, and all these feelings come. What is resolved? What's not resolved? And I picture what happened, how my emotions responded, and then I ask myself, what can I do differently when that comes up again, right? And sometimes the answer is nothing. Like you just let it wash through and observe it and let it pass. And sometimes it's like, okay, there's something in there that I haven't quite figured out. I have a lot of sort of remnant familial responsibility. So my grandmother will call me and ask me for something, sound a lot like my mom, and then be like, okay, I have to solve this issue for my 90-year-old grandmother. And that could put a lot of stress on me, but it generally doesn't, because like I can be like, okay, that's another thing to handle. What are my value systems that say, okay, I need to handle this for this person or not? And then I go through it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I made a decision that I was going to take care of her until she's dead. So, within these boundaries, and then I feel good about the response that I come up with when I feel emotional. And so sometimes the trigger will be like, oh, I feel super obligated. I got so many things to do. I'm super stressed out, blah, blah, blah. Got to get the DJ thing done. I got to fucking shoot the video for tonight. And all these people fucking try to take my time. And I get that. And then I'm like, okay. But these people find me valuable in very specific ways. And I've very clearly extended myself in ways that I think that I have the capacity for. Like if I don't have the capacity for it, I generally don't like make promises I can't keep. So it's good to visualize and go, okay, what are the value systems that are supporting this? Why do I feel good about doing this, right? And then I focus on those things, and then I feel much better about feeling obligated because I put myself in that obligation, right? And the more self-aware I can be about the decisions I've made and the contracts I've made with people and the obligations I've made with people, the better I can feel about my day-to-day activities. And sometimes when I have made a contract with somebody else, or I sort of defaulted to acting a certain way with somebody who wasn't reciprocating, then I can be like, reevaluate it and be like, okay, well, maybe I need to pull back on the resources I'm giving that situation because that's not as important as the things that I have better value systems for, right? So that's 8, visualization of emotional triggers. Number 9, we're almost done, emotional goal setting. So instead of just setting goals for like, okay, I want to make more money, I want to, have better friends, I got to, go through all that. I don't think I've talked to you guys about my organizational system, but it's pretty fucking advanced. And I go through like 10 areas of my life every day and every week to make sure that I'm making progress everywhere. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how do I want to feel, right? And this is more akin to yesterday's thing about setting intentions for the day. Like, what emotion do I want to experience more often? Is it calm? Is it joy? Is it bliss? Is it infatuation? Is it love? Like, what do I want to feel more often? And then just sort of reflect for a second. Like, all these exercises are like fucking a minute and a half long. What actions or what behaviors or what environments or what kind of people do you have to be around in order to cultivate that feeling of more love, right? For me, I have this pluri love thing where like I've been a raver since '99, right? I love going to festivals and dancing with people and doing all that stuff, and I've always loved it. And I'm old as fuck now, but I still go and I don't do drugs, and I still enjoy the music. I still enjoy the humans, and what I really love is whether they're drug induced or not. Everybody is super loving, like they're super like inclusive. They're super excited. They're and it's kind of artificial. Like not every day is a rave, right? But like I love that shit. And so when I sit around and I think to myself, oh man, like I'd really like to feel that energy again. Then I reflect on what actions I can take. So I'll go look up the local EDM events for the weekend and see if they're in my budget and my time budget, and then I'll just go and hit up Exchange in LA and see a show, meet some new people, and get that fix, and then I can put my head down and work a bunch, and then next month I'll go do another thing, right? And so when you set an emotional goal, you're like, I want to feel more of this. Then you reflect on the behaviors, the environments, the people, the actions you can take to foster more of that in your life, and then go put them in your daily plan. And then you set little goals, like okay. I'm going to make sure that I look up events in my city, once a month, and then you put it in the calendar, and then you sort of get that point where you experience the love more often, right? And number 10, reflective questions right before you go to bed. Again, this is the same thing as like the emotional stuff. It's like, what emotions did I feel today? And then you focus on the positive stuff, like what did I react to, and how did I react in a way that I'm proud of? And then with those things, what emotions did I feel today? And how am I proud of myself for reacting in the way that I did? Then you'll have those things in mind. You ask yourself, what can I do differently tomorrow to bring more of that into my life? And that's the reflective questions before bed. You can do this in a journal, or you can just sort of think about it and let your mind focus on that stuff, because the RAS, what you focus on expands. Actually, I'll go into that in crazy detail later this month. But basically, what you focus on expands. And so if you focus on what you're grateful for, focus on the ways that you made yourself proud, focus on the progress and the growth that you're making, that stuff starts to grow, and your opportunities and your resources for that grow. So that was the 10 things, the 10 self-reflection exercises that you can do to understand your emotions and create more self-awareness in your life. That's today's video. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up on Instagram at DukeDelate and send me a DM, or you can leave comments in the video, and I will get back to you and shoot some other content on that vein. Thank you very much for watching, listening, and being excellent. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, stay awesome.